everyone, and welcome back to the channel. As season 5 has concluded, I wanted to take a step back and honestly talk about Joe and Love Quinn. They're one of my two favorite characters and their dynamic in the show You, between season 2 and season 3. Honestly, I thought that they were a killer couple because they mirror each other so fascinatingly. So we're going to talk about a bit that today, and also just the psychological complexities between the two of them. I found them the most fascinating and toxic in the series over the few years. And over the course of the show, both of them evolve in unexpected ways. So if you've been following the series, you know that they each carry their own bits of tragedy and darkness, and of course, trauma, especially Joe. And what if I told you that love was the perfect mirror for Joe? That they could have been a perfect couple if only Joe was willing to accept his inner darkness. Well, grab your popcorn because we're going to do a deep dive into the psychology of Joe, their attachment styles, and how their relationship reflects a profound imbalance of both love and obsession. And why they could have been endgame if Joe just came to terms with who he really is. So when Joe first meets Love Quinn, he sees her as this idealistic, somewhat innocent person that could be his perfect match. A woman on the surface who's everything he's desired, like his past partners, Karen Minty, and of course Beck. All these women are beautiful, smart, funny, and above else, have this sense of purity that matches this twisted conception that Joe has of what love should be. And here's the kicker though, love is not pure. Love is love. A woman who knows exactly who she is, embraces it without any complexities, without hesitation, and without any apologies, really. Psychologically, we could think of Joe as someone with narcissistic traits. He's often fixated on the idea of love, not love the person, but the idea of love, and to him, this love must be obsessive, all consuming. And that's what he starts with all his relationships out, that he has to be the center by controlling and protecting those he loves all the time. Just like how he did for his mother, protecting her from his stepfather as a child. But this idea of protection, of course, is twisted and ultimately suffocating. When we look back in season 1, Joe literally puts himself at the center of Beck's life without having to necessarily be present. Breaking into her apartment, finding out who her friends are, her on and off boyfriend Benji, and all for all, stalking her first floor apartment and just peering through her window. Which, god damn it, Beck, get some damn blinds, girl. At least some sheer ones. You know, the ones where at least if you see a shadow, they're not that great, but they're blocking something. Like, I swear, it was like there was no there. You can't be called a peeping tom if there's a peep show to be had. It's crazy. And honestly, I loved Beck as a character initially, and it is a tragedy of what happens to her, of course. But now in season 2, we meet Love, someone on the surface who seems like a breath of fresh air. Quite literally, someone who we think embodies the emotion itself. And unfortunately, she does in the most worst of ways, because with love comes obsession. When we look at Love, we see someone who has a similar pattern of behavior. Oh, but no, she's not passive at all in the relationship. No, no, no. Love is just as dark, manipulative, and as obsessive as Joe, if not more so, arguably. The difference is Love embraces her darkness without the same level of shame or guilt that Joe does. Joe tries to use the excuses of, oh, but I do this for love and I would do this for you, because so and so around you is dangerous. And I can't have you be around dangerous people, can't I? Psychologically, they are the same, shaped by trauma. Joe, from his abusive childhood, from Love's own deep insecurities, the trauma of losing her ex husband, whom she accidentally murdered, on top of having to deal with 40's sobriety, 40's drug addiction, and being his rock. Quite literally babysitting a 35-year-old man consistently. However, the key difference between them is that Joe resists confronting that darkness, while Love accepts who she is. What really makes Love a mirror to Joe is how their darkness evolves throughout the series. They're both driven by this obsessive, pathological need to protect those they love, and it's how they react to this darkness that defines the course of their relationship. Joe's entire identity is wrapped in the fact that he's a good guy. He's not like the monsters. He's not like Paco's stepdad. He's not like his stepdad as a kid. He doesn't hit women. He doesn't hurt people just because. No, he just takes necessary actions against dangerous people. But the truth is, Joe's murdering people. Joe is stalking, gaslighting, and it all reveals the depths of his denial, along with his little trophy keeping habit. That is, number one, disgusting. The man kept a tampon. How down bad do you have to be for a woman to keep her bloody tampon? Also, Joe is constantly running from the fact that he's not the idealized version of himself that he wants to believe in. No, no, no. This man is quite literally Chris Hemsworth and Patrick Bateman. However, there is no separation. No, no, no. There is no split. No, they're just one person. On the contrary, Love embraces the complexity of who she is. Her darkness comes to light in season 2 when she kills a man to protect Joe, and later in season 3 when she's willing to go to extreme lengths to keep her family together. In season 3 when she's willing to go through quite literally like extreme lengths, not only killing someone but also paying for cover-ups, on top of the whole issue of hiring a PI to look into Joe. And she's not sorry at all. Unlike Joe, who's often in denial about his true nature, Love understands that the love she gives comes with a price, and that price is unconditional loyalty. She wants to be loved. She the same way that she gives love. If she could, she would probably live in Joe's skin. And the terrifying thing about Love is that she's fully aware of her actions. And in some sense, she revels in her power. She is not scared. She is not. No. She will not back down. She understands where she stands and how other people will take it. Especially when Candace tells her about Joe. She just sits there and she looks at her and she's just like, all right, he's got problems. We got problems. How much money will it take for you to, go and dip? Just be on your way because I know you don't have anything. Love Quinn knew that she was that bitch. She knew she was that girl and a half. And you know what? I can respect that. I respect game and I respect the crazy. Mind you, at first glance, it's hard to imagine them having any kind of happy ending. Their relationship is toxic, filled with manipulation, lies, and of course, murder. But if we look deeper, we could probably find a scenario where they could have been a perfect match if Joe was willing to accept the darkness that Love represented. Love, as a character, is unapologetic about who she is. She doesn't pretend that she's something that she's not. And if Joe embraced this and accepted that darkness in him, it doesn't have to be wrapped in a pretty little bow. That Love and him could have had a symbiotic bond. They could have been a couple that embraced it together, not in spite of it, but because of it. This brings us to the psychological concept of acceptance. In many therapeutic frameworks, accepting one's shadow self is that hidden id, that dark part of ourselves, which is a critical step towards healing and understanding. And Jo could have learned this lesson from Love, someone who accepted her shadow instead of running from the dark impulses. Because whether Jo realizes it or not, he loves the thrill of the kill, that adrenaline and that rush of him having to clean up a mess that he created. Unfortunately, that's not what happens. Joe's refusal to accept the truth about himself, combined with his pathological need to control his love interest, inevitably destroys any chance of a healthier, more sustainable relationship with Love. Which honestly is disappointing. Because why does Joe resist this kind of acceptance? Why can't he see that Love might be the perfect match for him? Well, looking at his psychological profile, it's delusional idealism. This is where Joe can't separate the idealized version of Love from the reality of who she is as a person. For Joe, Love is a fantasy. He wants a life with someone who meets this rigid criteria of what love should look like, and that person in his mind should be perfect. However, this isn't 51st Dates, Joe. This is life. Love's imperfection, her willingness to kill, her obsession, her insanity, the inability to let go, to hold on tightly to what she has, represents everything Joe fears about himself because he spends most of the seasons running from his problems. His entire identity hinges on the belief that he's different from everyone else. And Love, she's not different. She embodies the very darkness Joe has been spent his whole life denying. But here's the catch. In accepting Love's mirror, Joe would have had the opportunity to accept himself. He could have stopped running, stopped lying, and found a way to be with someone who truly understood him, someone who really could have solved all his problems with a snap of her fingers because Love had resources. Love had hecka money. She had fuck you money. As in, when I say fuck you money, as in, fuck you, that problem doesn't exist anymore. The thing between them is a tragic commentary on the dangers of obsession, the inability to confront one's darkness, even though they mirror each other in ways that are both fascinating and disturbing. And while it's hard to imagine them as a healthy couple, the truth is they could have been endgame. If only Joe accepted his shadow and embraced the truth of who he really is. But in the end, Joe's inability to face the darkness ultimately leads to his downfall, on top of his refusal to seeing Love for who she is, dark, twisted, and flawed, means he could never accept himself, which is why he saw the need to end her life, because he had to get rid of the monster, even though the monster is staring right back at him. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. What do you think about Love and Joe's relationship? Do you think that they could have had a healthier relationship if Joe accepted his true nature? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives in your favorite characters and shows. Until next time, I'm Spectreclaw. Keep reflecting on the shadows and take care.